Hi guys, hi everyone. Welcome in. So I'm going to put my supplies here on the side for you guys to see what I'm going to be using. For a medium brush, you can use a round or a flat. I recommend the flat, so a bright brush about a number 4. And of course a detailed brush. And if you happen to have a number 0 detailed brush, then that would be great for some of the smaller, tinier details on the painting. I have my water cup and paper towel, and I'm using a 12 by 16 canvas. So we're just about to get started, and you can pause, take your time throughout this video, watch it later. Yeah, this one is really cute. So for my paints, I have black, white, and then I have phthalo blue, bright yellow, and bright red. If you want, you can also use a burnt umber for brown or a raw umber as an option to instead of mixing brown, but I'm going to show you how to mix brown either way. So one of the first brushes I like to start with is my very large brush. It's this flat brush. It can be any size. I'm going to use that one to start. And this one is, this one's good for beginners too. So let's put some stuff on the side. And I'm going to start with my large one and dip it in the water. And we're going to start with just plain blue. And someone's asking what kind of paint I'm using. This is Start Acrylic, or you can use Michael's paint, Artist Loft paint. So plain blue, phthalo blue, or just primary blue. I'm going to go around halfway and just make some wavy, bumpy lines here. Just one line actually for the horizon. You can use a touch of water as you paint and fill in your background. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to fill in all of this top area in this dark blue. Just go back and forth, touch of water against this rounded, wavy horizon. More blue, tiny dip of water. Take it to the top. Okay, so once you've filled all of this top of your sky in with just plain blue, then I'm not going to wash off the brush. We don't really need to. We're going to let it sit for just a couple minutes before we put some darker blue on top as like a second coat. You can see it's going to be more of a midnight, deeper, dark blue sky up here, and then a little bit to just kind of fading out into this lighter blue at the bottom. But with the same brush, my trick is to just take a little scoop of white, go along your horizon here. So just using plain white. It's going to pick up a little bit of this blue on your brush or from the sky. And you can make this to your liking. Nice long strokes, just follow it from end to end. A little bit of water, pick up a little bit more white, and just drag it a little bit further down. So I went from this line up here about halfway down because it gives it more of a light blue color. So go about halfway here. And then you can wash it off. Welcome in. Hi, Vicky. So if you need to, you can touch up with some white along the top, just in case, it's just turning into a darker blue or too dark of a blue for your liking. For all those little hills here. And with my washed off brush, so after you've taken it about halfway down, you just wash it off again, but you take your contaminated white. So I'm going to take some of that contaminated white I had here on the side, just slightly touching a bit of blue. Let's do that. And then let's take this to the bottom. So you have this filled in. Remember to use some water. And it's going to be mostly white, but it's not just, your plain canvas. We just want it to be slightly off-white. And now it's fading to more of a pure white towards the bottom from this middle point in the snowy kind of hills. Okay, so just nice long strokes again. And then we'll go back to the sky in just a minute with a clean brush again. Just dab it dry. We don't want water or too much water onto our brush. We just want it to be more of a dry brush for the top. And then back into the top, I am mixing the giant scoop of my blue with a little piece size of black. So you can see it looks super dark blue. It almost looks black, but you'll notice that it's just a midnight blue when you start painting on, and it makes it at the very top a lot more deeper in tone, going over top of your previous blue. It's really nice. Just kind of drag it back and forth. And I'd like to use, with a touch of water, just use more of the thin side. You can streak in as you get down, just a little bit of this, and just so it gets a little bit less and less as you go down. So a touch of water, pick up a little bit more of this dark blue, streak it from your right side using more the thin side of your brush, doing pretty long strokes, and you can put this color wherever you feel like putting it. If you add a bit more blue onto your brush, it won't turn up as dark. It will turn up just a little bit less, just more of a blue tone, still dark, but not as black looking. Okay, so make it as dark as you like. Drag this down as much as you like to. But I'm still using the thin side of my brush, picking up some paint. Maybe I'll just put a couple streaks around here. And a good tip, if you're trying to blend it out a little bit more, just take your plain blue again. And when you take that again as a second coat, you'll notice that it turns up, you see less of your brush strokes. It's more blended looking, deeper in color, and it can blend out any dark or almost black lines that you don't want to show. Right, so you can still do a second coat of just regular blue that you started with towards the bottom. I like it a little bit deeper up at the top. And I think I'll just leave this to dry. We need it to dry before we put that white moon. You can use a blow dryer for that. But we don't need to wait for it to dry to do a splatter of stars. I would still wait, I think, another couple minutes just to be safe. And with the same large brush, we can put a little bit of, so just another layer of hills, a little bit lower down from this horizon. So I'm going to go maybe somewhere around here, just more of like a scoop down and then back up. This will be about where my trees are going to sit, just like kind of behind the hill or just on top of the hill. And just drag this down a little. So it looks a little bit brighter now. And then it fades back down into your light blue. Now it looks like you have some piles of snow. Trying to bring down my horizon just a smidge. I don't need my hills as tall. And someone's asking about watching this later. Yes, you can use the same link to watch it. Just type in the title in the search bar too. It's easy to find. Okay, so once we have that second little layer of hills, just a little bit below where your first layer was back here, now we can splatter a bit of stars. It's really fun. You can use any of your medium brushes, like a round. This is a round about a number 6 or something like that, with a little bit of white. Just kind of dip it in water and just get it more watery. So taking a couple dips of my water and doing it a few times by mixing it in with my white. Then you're just going to flick for stars as much as you like. And you want to do this now before you start adding trees and other things like the hot tub. And with the back handle of one of your detail brushes, you can always dot in a few more, maybe make a constellation in the sky, a couple more stars, wherever you need to put it in. Okay. So I think that's good enough for me. Maybe a few more over here on the sides. And if you have a blow dryer, you can take a minute to dry your background just a little bit. We're going to start very shortly on the placement of the hot tub and putting in our trees, like with a dark green. So we'll start that very shortly. So let's see, are we ready to move on and put in some hot tub? So it's a brown. If you have a premixed brown, grab a bit of that, and then we'll mix some dark green. Okay, let's move on. So the brush that I'm going to be using, I'm going to be using more of like a medium brush here. That is, you can use your round or your flat. So remember if you have a premixed brown, also you can use equal parts. So pretty much like one of the only times we're using red is mostly just to make this brown. So red and yellow about equal parts. dip of black, just a little dip of black. So it's not getting too dark and too grayish in tone. And a little scoop of white. It will give it a lighter brown. Not too bright though, it's just more of a lighter brown overall. So it looks like a chocolate brown, kind of like the wood there. Okay. You can start with a detailed brush just to get the shape of it and then fill it in with this one. So I'll just leave that there for a minute. Okay, so for placement, I think right around, let's go a little bit higher. Let's go right around here, just a little curve. As wide as you want to go. I think you need to take up a bit of space here. All right, then we're going to go straight up from each end. So you're going to go up like this, a few inches. About the same. And then we're going to have, so from the tops here, we're going to have a nice curve from the side on each end. Just kind of curve it down a little bit. Okay, and you want to imagine like you're just swooping around and making the other side of your hot tub just by from each corner. Kind of swoop it, bring it up and back down to meet. So you can see a little bit more inside the hot tub when it's a bit more circular, really. So just so you know, I'm just going to use the flat side and go up and down straight lines just to get a nice base coat here. And the same thing we have to do along the back. So there's a little bit of the back part inside the hot tub you can see. So I'm just doing really short lines, again, straight up and down to get this part filled in as a base coat right there. So right now it looks a little bit weird. It's not done, of course. Just washing these brushes off, and that has to dry. So after you fill that in up and down, and your brown color can be really a range of many things. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine. You can switch it up a little bit. But this is our base coat. It's not going to be, I think, as solid and as brown as you want it to be until we do a bit more of a second coat, add some more details into that wood. And now we can place our trees with some dark blue, or no, sorry, dark green. It's very much like a forest green, and that has to also dry. So I do recommend taking a blow dryer and blow drying your painting again so that we can have this dry before we put more details on top. It's no fun putting paint on top of wet paint. It doesn't really work out very well. So I am using my flat brush again. And I want a scoop of blue. Take a scoop of blue, big scoop of yellow, so about equal parts of each. And a little scoop of black. So just a small little touch of black is fine. And a small little touch of white. You can get, it makes it look a little bit more like an evergreen, but also it's not as dark where it looks like it's black. So you can see that green right here, something like that. You don't see too much of the color, which is great. You mostly see the snowy trees anyway. All right, so making these trees, let's see, I can show you on another palette. Yes, I'm going to show you on something else or a piece of paper. So I have like a piece of paper here on the side. So you're going to start with a stick like this. And I'll show you how tall to go. I think for me over on this side, I'm going to go about this tall. You can add as many trees as you like. Pretty tall. See, it's hard to see against the dark background. And I'm going to go right around where this hill is here for one other tree. Not as tall as the other one, and then one next to it a little bit shorter. There. So the trick for this is using the corner of your brush first. Just lightly tap at the top. Just kind of hit the corner. Press a little bit harder on the way down. And then switch to the flat side. Pressing right in the middle. I like to press into the middle. All the way down to start. Then after this, all you're going to do is just extend your branches a little bit. You're just going to extend it a little bit on each end to get a little bit wider. The widest at the bottom. Just tapping with the tip of your brush. You can go a little bit on a downwards angle if you want to. And the middle is very much filled in. And then keeping it fairly thin at the top. You're not going to really touch that anymore. And just make it as wide as you want to. So you're just going to gradually get a little bit wider. And that should be your evergreen trees. So I'll grab some more green and just hit with the corner first. And just go all the way down. And you can always add a touch more black if you want it to be deeper green. Maybe it's a bit too bright for your liking. I'm trying to stop around where this hill is, so it's like it's just behind the hill. It's okay if you go over your hill just a little bit, because you can touch up on the white afterwards or when it's more dry at the very end. Just extending the bottom a little bit more. I want it to be a bit wider overall. And let's do the other trees. So hopefully it's working out nicely for you guys, starting with the very light little touches with the corner at the very top and then pressing a bit harder as you get down, then using the tip to extend them wider and wider at the bottom. Just make sure that middle is filled nicely. And my last little tree here. let that dry. And if you're wondering the number or the size of my brush for my large flat, it doesn't actually have a number on it, but it is probably at least a size, it's like a 16. Yeah. So I'm just going to wait a minute or two. I think you guys might still be working on your trees there. And we're going to start in very shortly. We're going to start with putting in some track marks here where the paw prints are leading up to the hot tub, and some lighter blue accents just around the hot tub and a little bit of that stuff. But we're going to go back into here and touch up also on the details. So we're going to make it look nice and like wood. So the little paw prints in the snow that are just coming over here. Before we do that, I want to put some little accents with some light blue, and I can use my round brush or detailed brush, some white and a touch of blue, just a little small touch so it gets to a light blue here. I'm going to put some on the sides. Okay, so this is very similar to what's my background. So I'm going to put a little bit more blue, a little bit darker blue. I'm just going to streak it, kind of bring it down so it looks like there's a bit of an indent. And maybe another like hill right around here, right in the front. A couple more streaks just for fun. So once I wash that off, if you take plain white, going around these, I find is it gives nice highlights on your hills. Blends it out a little bit too. You can go around in this area, just touch up on with the white in the hill here. Same with over here. Try not to touch the wet green. And a little bit around here, below that blue line. So if you take that same, so I'm going to take a little bit of a darker sky blue, just a bit more blue in with that light blue that I made for these indents here. You can even use the same blue if it was dark enough. When you take that with a round medium brush, so if I were to say press, and then just kind of do like a short line, press, and try to make it look like, you know, it's like up, down, up, down, up, down, right? So then it looks like it's walking and not just in a straight line. So that's how I started it, but I have to let that dry now. So what you want to do is you want to wash off that brush again. Just leave it on the side and switch back to your flat medium brush. So back to this flat one. And your brown, if you have any leftover brown, great. You probably do. You should, just from mixing it before. But equal parts red and yellow again with a dip of black. I do have some of my premix brown here. Just going to add in a little extra touch of black, or less white if you're mixing it fresh. But if you have it left over, just add in an extra touch of black, because I'm just darkening more on the sides. Yeah, a little bit on the sides and bottom, maybe. Just make it a rustic look. Try to do a bit of a second coat at the same time. Just drag it up and down. There, so it looks a bit more rustic, and it's already giving us a sense of a wood kind of feel. And up here, so I just have to touch up on that line because the trees were overlapping, but I'm just going to do the same type of thing, just a couple streaks all the way through. Nice rustic look, but just streaking it up and down. And then I switch to my detailed brush. This is about a size 2, or anything smaller is probably good. And you want a dip of water and black paint. Just constantly do that. Water and some black paint, but don't let it drip everywhere. You just want a little bit of each at the, just rinse and repeat. You have to reload the brush a lot here. So you can start with a line just on the edge, just follow that up. And don't worry if the line's not very consistent. But these are supposed to be more of the indents and the creases between the different wood panels of wood that we have here. So I'm just going to go all the way to the top. Try to keep them all straight as you work your way through this entire hot tub. Same with at the back. So I'm not angling my brush strokes. I'm keeping them all straight as much as I can. It's easy to clean up any lines around if you want to go back to your brown, just to trim around a little bit around some of the lines if they're a bit too thick. It's not a big deal. Okay, so after that, I'm just going to not play around with that too much, unless you're touching up on anything in the background too. Again, just giving it a little chance to dry a little bit more. I think, no, we can't really put the water in there, so let's not do that. I don't want to mix brown and blue. It starts making like greenish, murky colors. However, once you are done putting those black lines in, just put in a touch of your light or your, I guess, blue or light blue with a scoop of white. So you get kind of like an off-white color, off-white bluish tone. And I'm going to just wrap it around the tops towards the side of these little footprints, just on top and inside the blue right here. Kind of wrap it around. I'm going to press. You can wrap it around the side a little bit as well, just to give it a bit more of a defined shape. And one of the other things you could do, if you want to, you go a little bit above and beyond, you can take just a little bit of your plain blue on your detailed brush and just darken the bottom. You can just darken the bottom a little bit more. So white is a good trick for cleaning up any edges that you don't want to show around here to give it a bit more of a crisp outline. Not that it has to be totally perfect, but sometimes your paint is not doing what you want it to do, so just kind of wrap it around to clean up some of the edges. So when we go back to our hot tub, we're just about to finish up the whole shape of it, how it looks, and then when it's dry, we're going to put our blue in here and start putting polar bear. When you take a bit of white and add it to some of your brown, of course, you're going to get a much lighter brown with your detailed brush. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use my light brown. And it has like a bit of a beige color. And I'm going to just lightly streak, even though this is still a bit damp, totally okay. Just lightly streak, help give it a little boost on the rustic look I was talking about. Just around the middles here. Make it very streaky, that's okay. Makes it look more like wood. And maybe a little bit at the back too. Keep it a bit consistent. But that is a great color to start putting the outline around the top. So like the rim of the hot tub, that's a good one to start working on. Whenever you're ready, of course, you can do touch-ups on anything else. So like some of your black, if you like deeper lines for the separation of the wood panels, just try to be careful you're not making it too thick. But yes, with my detailed brush, I'm going back to that light brown. Little touch of water, just kind of twirl it into your paint so that it keeps it thin on the end with a touch of water. Just twirl it and keep doing that over and over. But I'm going to go around this part. I'm trying to keep it on top. So I'm covering just the top of my hot tub, not going above the line. I'm just covering that top part here to create more of a rim. And then you're going to follow that around it. So when you get over here, you're just going to curve it out. And I actually went a little bit lower here on the bottom just because I wanted it to be a bit more open and wider overall. So to give you an idea of how this is going to look with the water in it, try to do this when it's dry, of course. Use whatever brush makes you comfortable, some sort of medium or detailed brush, maybe a detailed brush to start. This is just a sky blue is probably a good one to start with. So if I go just around, you're just going to go right over to close to the corner and just make it another kind of like parallel line to the top part. So just kind of swoop it up and then back down and just follow above this rim at the bottom. And now it looks like it's filled with water. But when you do this while it's still wet, it turns a bit green. So that's why it's not the best idea to do it right away. So I'm just going to touch up onto this rim again. So the water is close to the corner, not touching it, but just around there and going up a little bit and back down. Same type of line like it is above. So with your detailed brush, I am taking, I think just you can take a black or a little bit of a dark gray, maybe a touch of white added, so it's not ultra dark and it's just slightly lighter than the black. Really up to you. I'm going to use that, twirl my brush into it again, just go along the bottom. So you have to be careful. I say a 00 or size 0 brush is perfect, so you're not accidentally making too thick of a line. Just take a little bit of time for the extra steps to make this hot tub look a little bit more put together, a bit more realistic too. Black would be fine too. It's not like you have to do a dark gray. See, I just went around that rim at the bottom. Just below it. So it's almost like it's giving it a bit of a shadow. And you can lightly just pull down, just kind of pull it down from that line, a couple little streaks with your dark gray or black, give it a bit more shadow. And the same type of deal on the bottom of this side over here. And if you're feeling up for it, you can get also on the top part. So just on the top part, it gives it a sharper look. A little bit of water, pick up your paint, and keep going. So now we can go back to our trees and make the snow on the trees. I'm switching back to my flat medium again. You can also use a flat large too for more of the bottoms. You'll see, I'm going to start with this one and then you can switch. I like to use the same brush that I made the trees with, so it's very consistent in the texture. Take a dip of your white. And it's nice and generously coated. So at the top, I'm just using the corner again, just kind of tapping. And I'm going to leave a couple dabs. I'm going to start switching to the flat side, right? So I'm going to start maybe on one side of the tree. Just leave some gaps on the way down. And just follow where you think you see opportunity of where your branches are. You just dab, bring it in, leave a gap. Same thing. Grabbing some more. Just dab. You can make it a bit thicker so it's looks a lot more snowy and thicker snow covering the trees. And we just have to go. I just want to wash off this brush. Just in case you're grabbing some green. I don't want to grab too much at a time. So into the middle. And then off to the side. So it doesn't have to be all lined up, right? It can be in different levels and layers. So it looks like there's multiple layers going through your tree. So if I go on this side, I'm not trying to line it up with the other side, but if it happens to, that's okay. Now the thing with your large brush, you can, instead of using this one, so I'm going to do another tree. I'm just going to start at the top and I'll switch to a larger brush. Start at the top, leave some gaps, work your way down. I'm just going to do both sides. And now I'm going to switch to my larger flat brush. And just do the same thing, but it covers a little bit more of your surface area here on the tree. And I don't mind it's picking up a little bit of green either. It kind of helps with a bit of highlight too, if you like the highlighted look that it brings. And not to worry if you need to put some dark green back in, maybe when it's a bit more dry, but you can always add some more back in, separate some of the snow pieces if needed. So as you're working on your tree for the snowy parts, when you work on one side and then kind of work around to the other side, it gives it like you can see all the way around the tree type of look. So before we start the hot tub details, putting I think a second layer of water. If you haven't done it yet, we're going to put it in because it should be a bit more dry. However, you can take white or anything like that just to cover a little bit more of the bottom, right? Just around the bottom of your hot tub. So it looks like the snow is covering over top and not the other way around. Now it looks like it's deeper sitting into the snow. Maybe a little hill here, sure. So touching up onto the water, let's put in the base coat. So maybe a second coat, maybe it's your first coat, whatever it is. We're putting in some sky blue. I'm going to go a little bit darker. So let's take another little piece size of blue, just a little bit darker, and fill that in. Just very carefully. Use your detailed brush if you need to. Right in here. Okay. That should take care of any green or brown that you need to cover, hopefully. But with your detailed brush, after that, take just plain white is all it's just all you need because it's on top of the blue. It's going to make it a lighter blue. And I'm just going to go around the edge. I'm not going to go higher unless you want to put more water into the hot tub. I'm just going to go right over top of my light blue and trace around the edge. Same with any of the hills that you need to touch up on. You can do a last little highlight of white to cover some of the tree bottoms if you need to there. All right. So now you can take your blow dryer if you need to again. Just dry it up a little bit. I'm going to wait a minute, I think, before I start on putting in some more white streaks into the water, placing my polar bear. Yeah, that would be the next step. So putting a little bit of a ripple effect into the water and then placing the polar bear. And I'm just seeing where we're at. If anybody is caught up with me, if you're painting along, you can let me know. I'm just about to get started on the next step, right into the hot tub. All right, so I'm going back in with my detailed brush or your super detailed brush. Little things in the hot tub can really help with the overall look. It's these small little details at the end here that make it look a bit more put together and slightly a bit more realistic too. Not that we were totally going for a realistic here. I mean, this whole thing is a fantasy picture. Okay. So with plain blue, I'm starting with plain blue, going a little bit below that white outline that I did into the water. Washing that off, I'm going to straight white. So a touch of water again. Pick up your white by twirling your brush into your paint. So the way that it's moving, you don't see the full ripple. It's kind of just curved, following along the side here towards the back. But you don't see that full outline, right? So it's going to stop at some point right around here, however much you can fit in. And just keep going Do a couple more. I would say 3 is a good number. And what helps pop it out just a little bit more is that dark blue, so the plain blue. I call it dark blue because it looks like dark blue, but it's just my regular blue. You just have to wash off the brush again and just follow it on the inner side. You can thin out your lines as well, and it pops out the white more. The whole ripple just a lot more too. See that? Now it has a bit more movement going into this section. And we have to start with our first coat, base coat of our polar bear. You're probably going to end up doing like 3 coats. Not that it's a bad thing, it's just you're trying to cover your background and you just have to let it fully dry each time. When you don't do that, you're going to be doing more and more coats. So we're going to do our base coat on our polar bear and then jump over to do a first coat on our moon and kind of just jump back and forth here to finish up the layers. Put in the little rubber ducky. So when you take your plain white, you have to imagine like you're seeing the whole polar bear, even inside the water. So it's going to go from wherever you can see it. Here it's going to have a little bit of this belly. Let's call it the beer belly. So a little bump coming up, and then you have to fill also towards the edge. You're not going to see any of this stuff over on this side, which is totally fine. So pop it up and just bring it up. So it's going back on an angle. So it's like a slope, like a ski slope. And then you're going to make for the head. See how I'm going to do like what is this? It's like a soft triangle shape sticking up towards the sky. Fill that in. And we have to take this towards the back of the head. So once you have that little bump here, then you're going to add in, because this is going to be where the nose and the mouth is, you're going to add in a second little slight bump from here. So we have that triangle for the head, and it's going to be a second little bump towards the back. Okay, so this is where the eye is going to sit right around here. But this is that second little back bump for the back of the head, and just has a little indent for where it gets into the mouth and nose. You're going to follow this back, and you can just round it out if it helps you, just like that, to create more of a head shape, like pretty much like an alien head shape. So you have like this alien head shape from the side, but it has this second slight little bump up right here. Okay, so to complete more of this look, from this head, we have to put in an ear. And I'm going to put the ear, so towards the back, just another like you're making a circle. So you're just placing a circle on top. So that's towards the back of the head. And from the ear, that's where your little guideline is for creating the back of the neck into like an arm. So the arm's going to hang just a little bit lower. It's going to hang off the edge and just kind of scoop back up. This guy's really laid back, just having a good time. So I'm going to dip it down and just bring it back up so it meets with the side. You want to make it look like he's resting it a bit more onto the side of this hot tub. So we have a nice swoop here. Oops, a nice curve below this line and then back up. So it's going to rest here. And this is where the paw is. So you're going to make a little circle for the paw on the end. So it's half overlapping the edge of your hot tub and up into the water. But this all has to be filled in now. We're going to shape it more later on. This has to dry before we can do second coats. The more you play around with it, the more it turns back to blue, unfortunately, which is no fun. So that means we can focus on our moon. And the best way to do it is to just take, trace around your cup. So this is my cup, and I'm just going to trace around it with my small detailed brush. Place that over here. This is a good spot. And start with your first coat before you do a second coat. So it has to fully dry, and then when you do a second coat, it should be very white. There we go. This is my dark green. You can see if you want to put in a couple more. This is like forcing layers between some of the white to put more gaps in between some of your snowy bits. That's an option. However, I'm thinking we could probably do our first coat on our rubber ducky because we can switch between various things. That's going to need 2 coats as well, just to get it nice and yellowy. It's got a little hint of red, but you don't have to add any red. If you like I feel like yellow by itself is just not very realistic. So when I add a touch of red, it gives it a soft yellow orangey color, but you can't really tell it's very orange at all. Okay, so touching up onto my little white spots. So with my detail brush, you're going to grab a little scoop of yellow and some white and just a tiny little smidge of red. So you have to be careful with the red. You can see there's like a little dot on this brush. Oh, I want to do this spot. Okay, so when I mix it in, it has a golden yellow color. If there's too much white, just add a bit more yellow. And if there's too much red, obviously add more yellow too and a touch of white. Alternatively, if you're not having a good time with this, it's like not working out, just take yellow and white as is. It doesn't matter. As long as there's white. Otherwise, you won't be able to see on top of your background. So the way that this is shaped, let's go much closer. When we go much closer, we're going to go just over to the side. We're going to put a little tail flicking up, kind of like a boat, right? So it's got this little tail, and then you're going to press harder towards the front. So it has like this little swoop towards the front. Looks a bit like a bird. Because then this is going to curve up and into a circle. Just a little dot. So you can just make a little dot for the head. But you want to make the body, so leave the tail pretty thin, but then just make it nice and rounded and curved up, almost like a banana into that circle top. And with your ultra detailed brush, that's where you can attach a little tiny triangle for where the beak's going to sit. And we're going to put orange on that when this is dry, because this is our base coat, and this should be a good start for covering our background. And my suggestion, once you've done that, is to just take some plain blue and give it a little bit of like a shadow underneath. So along that, the part where it's going to be touching the water, just along that bottom, just make it a bit more flat. You don't need to outline the duck. Just put it flat along the bottom here, like a straight line, and that should be good. Okay, so I say change your water. We'll come back and do our second coats on the moon and on the polar bear. And then we'll start adding smaller details, making the water look like it's overlapping the polar bear a bit more, outlining and putting the face and stuff like that. So I will start again in 2 minutes. I'm just going to change my water. Okay, so I've changed my water. Hopefully we let it dry for a little bit. So hard to just wait for things to dry. All right, so I'm going to grab just a little bit more fresh white to start my second coat. Here we go. We're just going to put this into polar bear's body. There, it's a lot more brighter. And if you want to do a third coat, certainly can do that, but you're going to have to wait before you do all the details into the body and face. When I do my second coat up here in my moon, turns up a lot brighter. I don't mind little hints of like blue or something like that streaking into it, so it's not blinding white. It's not unnatural. All right, let's bring this bear to life. Let's do a second coat on our rubber ducky too. Yeah, it's a lot more yellow looking. Okay, so to get this polar bear looking like he's laid back, relaxing, you have more of an outline around his arm and a face. Let's first start with just our black paint on our super detailed brush. So the fine detailed brush, 0 or 00. So right at the tip of the nose, I'm just going to put like a little indent towards the top of the nose. So it's just, and just fill it in with like a circle for that top part. Kind of has this little crease dipping down into the nose. What's going to help stand this out a little bit more, depending on where your nose is ended, you take a little bit of white, you just lightly go around that nose a little bit, so it's a bit more gray. You can stand out just a little bit more here too. So not far from where that is, I'm just going to go a little bit lower down and just kind of swoop in a little smile with a little line going across right about the middle of the face. So it's when you go down the middle here, it's kind of ending around that middle point. You can always put a little white dot into the tip of the nose too, if you want to add just a little shine there. So now I'm going back with my black to work on the placement of the eye. This is an interesting placement. I mean, it's right where that little indent from the nose and the mouth is. And then we go into that bump. Right, so we have all of this just a little bit in from here. I'm just going back on an angle, just kind of curving it down, pressing a little bit more here. And it looks like he's closing his eye. Let's go closer. So a little curve down. I'm going to press a little bit more and give it a little bit of another line kind of angled up for a bit of a brow. Hopefully that makes sense. So if you need to, you can use your white to just go right into that crease there. You see the black, just a little bit more of a brow coming up from here, from that corner part. Just back and out. Okay, so hopefully you can see that a little bit closer on what's going on here. All I'm doing is touching up on the white for the streaks. Any blue that I see, I just try to touch it up just a smidge. Okay, now going into the ear, I'm going to use a dark gray, so some black and a scoop of white. You get a dark gray. Use that, put a little curved line right near the bottom. Then you're going to just do a bump for that inner ear shape. Kind of mimicking the whole shape of the ear. So to get that outline around arm. Starting with some gray, just so it pops out against the snow, you can give it a little bit more of an outline anywhere you need to, especially around, so that paw, you're just going to wrap it around and bring it in. You don't need to don't go too far back. Then he looks like he's got this really thin stick arm. He's got, he's got some meat on him. So you want to just bring that in. And you can even use a bit of white, so a little extra white to just blend it out and up a smidge more. Same with the dark gray. You can also outline around the side of the body, around that paw and arm. But I like to add in a touch of blue into my gray. So let's add a touch of blue and some white. So you get like a blue-gray. And I just drag that in, just do a thicker line going around this side here. So once you have that line going around the arm, you wash it off and take a little bit of white, and you can just blend it out a little bit. You just pick up a little excess of that color, just go over it and just kind of blend it towards the middle. And you can give a dark blue outline around this belly. So let's take our black on our super small detailed brush and just give a tiny little dot, just a little poke for the eye, close to the beak, right there. Hard to see, that's there. And using our black, we're going to put in some of the claws. So I like to start within, just a little bit within, just kind of bring it out, just kind of flick it out and down on a soft curve. Okay, here's one. And press and then pull away and flick it out down. Press, flick it out down so it's getting thinner towards the end. That's 1, 2, 3. Let's do 4. Press and flick it out down. You can just go over the tops just to make it a little bit thicker. So on the rubber ducky, a little bit of red and yellow. You don't need to add any white. In fact, it's probably best you don't. dot of red, a nice pea size of yellow will give it just a basic orange color. Maybe just a little bit, and maybe just a touch more red if you want it to be more deeper orange. So that's what we want to use to add in right on top of that triangle beak. There we go. We're getting there. So around the polar bear, if you want to put a little bit of like a water line covering, right? Because you want to put maybe a little bit of water coming up around the belly. That's just with white and a touch of blue. So you get a light blue. So you get a light blue here. Touch of water. Get a light blue. And I would say just kind of wrap it around the belly a little bit. A couple little lines. Just take white onto your brush. You don't need to wash it off, and just lightly fill in that area. So just a very light blue cover into the water, but you still see this little, you can still see this blue outline where the bear's belly is going into the water, but you see this, there's more of a water line wrapped around. Okay, so we're almost there. We just have to put the the little hot steam. Okay, so we're gonna put hot steam and some little bubbles if you are feeling like putting some bubbles around the bear. You can call them gas bubbles if you want to. But we know this is a hot tub, so it's one of those hot tubs that you can turn on and you get all of those bubbles. So just touching up on this coat right here on the rubber ducky. And I'm going to still use this detail brush for my little bubbles before I start the steam. Tiny detailed brush once again, and just make tiny little circles. Just circles, that's it. As many as you want. Okay, I'm just putting them all around that bear. So I just want to make sure this is pretty dry. When we do the steam coming up, I'm not using a detailed brush. I'm actually going to use, I think, this round brush. So I'm going to use that. And I have water on it. I'm going to take just a little tiny touch of white, just kind of spread it around on the brush. I'm just going to spread it around on the brush so it's pretty watery. And I'm also going to just dab it on a napkin just to get extra paint off. I don't want it to be too covered with paint. You can test on your hills just to make sure, right? So you can just make sure that it's not coming on. It's more transparent, if anything. So now that I have that, I can start from within the hot tub and just kind of do some wavy lines up. Just kind of press and just flick it upwards. And just go over some of these, maybe dab a little bit. The more you go over it, the more opaque the white's going to turn out to be. So that's your call on how much you want to do. I like to do a little bit more at the bottom because that's where most of the steam's going to be. Just take a little bit extra on my brush and just dab a little bit down there. And that should complete the whole painting. I had a little smudge of some blue here, so I'm just covering it with stars. Hopefully that works. So if you are done, you can sign your painting. You can pop over to our Facebook page and show your results under the event or under our calendar at Artist Palette Durham Region on Facebook. We love to see results. Just covering some of my smudges I made. Yeah, thanks for joining me. And maybe you'll paint along with me again soon. I'm painting more. There's more coming up. You can subscribe to our channel and check out on our website, artistpalettedurham.com there, and see what other paintings we have as well. Have a great rest of your night. Bye, guys.